Welcome to the Main Street Minute with equestrian marketing expert India Wilkinson. This is the destination for all things equestrian, from horse sales, breeding, horse health, and a look into the intricacies of the horse business world. Join India as she dives in with industry leaders to discuss the challenging and rewarding lifestyle of being in the equestrian world. And get ready for the Main Street Minute.
Hi there, this is India Wilkinson with the Main Street Minute, and I am so excited today to welcome David Reichert with United Dressage and Jumping Club. So, David, I will tell you that I found you through the power of social media, which is always a wonderful way to be introduced to something new, especially through one of our partnered writers, Megan Compton. So she is a huge fan of yours, and I was excited to learn more about what you have going on. So why don't we just jump right in and you tell us about it?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, social media is very exciting. Social media is a very exciting tool for us to get our message out. So yeah, I'm glad you found us. So UDJC is a new nationwide acting government body for equestrian, if you want. So we do dressage, jumping, and hunters, and we do everything quite differently than the other big organizations. We have a totally different message and a totally different approach to pretty much almost everything. That's why there is, in our opinion, such a need for UDJC, because it was not just a couple of things that we thought need to change. It's pretty much almost everything that has to change. So we figured, well, even the little things are not changing, and we want a lot of changes, so we might have to do our own thing. And that's where we're at now.
Oh, I think that's fabulous. And it's something that we talk about a lot on this podcast, kind of behind the scenes. And then what made you actually take the plunge and say, because a lot of people have ideas and yeah, we need change and someone should, but you actually did it. So what was the defining moment where you're like, okay, we're actually going to create something new?
Well, I'm not a big complainer. I complain for a little bit, and when I realize, okay, complaining doesn't help, then I either stop complaining or I just fix it myself. And this is just another fixing it myself approach, pretty much. So I moved with my family to the US at the end of 2019. We have a big tech company in Europe, and we wanted to start the US market with the tech company. And then COVID hit and everything went different ways. We got into horses. Well, obviously we have been into horses our whole life in Germany, but then other than planned, we got into horses here in America, and we founded a riding school, and the riding school was getting pretty big, and we started taking the students to shows. And that's when the frustration started, pretty much in 2020, when I realized, okay, this is not good. And then, the usual couple of years of frustration. And then the initial point of saying, okay, we have to do this now was last year in October at regional dressage championships. We had a handful of 12, 13 kids at regionals, and it was horrible. The judging was horrible. The atmosphere was horrible. Everything about this was like it typically is, pretty bad. And then I was so frustrated. Saturday night, I told the kids, okay, we're going to go home. We're not even going to ride on Sunday anymore. And the kids were like, oh yeah, please, can we go home? So we went home Saturday night off for regionals, and then I locked myself in the office and I said, okay, this is it. And then I started writing the rule book and the dressage tests and the concept and all of that. And a couple of weeks later, I was done with that. And this is pretty much when everything started.
I love that. So I'm a former eventer and now dressage rider. And I earned my bronze a few years ago. And one of the reasons that I haven't gone back to pursue my silver is just it's not fun anymore, the way that the program is set up right now. And I think there's a lot of us, and as I said, I posted on my page, Main Street Market, there's a lot of questions. And I think that means there's a lot of excitement. People want change. So tell me, just in practical terms, someone signs up for one of your shows. What are they going to see? What's going to be different?
I mean, at the end of the day, nobody needs to be scared to come to our shows, because at the end of the day, it's just riding the horse, right? So there's nothing that is majorly different. We're not telling you all of a sudden you got to sit on the horse backwards or something like that. But our approach of developing riders through the levels and also developing horses, especially through the levels, is completely different than anything you're used to. It depends on the discipline. So in dressage, of course, the biggest difference in dressage is that we have two paths of dressage. We have regular benchmark tests, which are regular dressage tests that are pretty much scored and judged in a very classic way, mainly judged on the horse, of course. But then we have an ability path, and the ability path goes all the way up to 4th level. and that's only judged on the rider. So one of our biggest things is we need to get the quality of the horse out of the picture, because the quality of the horse does not matter up to a pretty decent level. You know what I mean? If you ride third level, fourth level, you start tapping into the FEI levels. Of course, then you want a quality horse. Well, you know, it's part of the sport, but especially, and this is what makes it so inaccessible for everybody, especially, you know, where most people are in third level and below, or, you know, meter 20 jumping classes and below. We have to get away from making it all about the horse. You know, if you're a gritty kid, if you're a good rider, you can take a thoroughbred and show it over meter 10 or meter 20. You know, you don't need expensive German Warmplatz in order to do any of this. So, but for some reason, the industry and a lot of trainers tell us we do need all these fancy horses in order to achieve a couple things instead of teaching anybody how to ride, you know. So this is something we're fighting against. So in our regular dressage classes, we also have a qualification mode. So you cannot just show up and ride whatever you want. So this is one thing that drives me nuts in USDF, that you see a lot of people riding Brie St. George and I1 and all these fancy levels, but they're actually second level rider at best. So that is something that's one of the biggest things that always bothered me in dressage. So obviously, like every other organization in the world, you have to qualify in order to reach a specific level. And you can either do that through our regular benchmark classes, where you pretty much start on the bottom and then qualify your way up. This would be a typical path of a beginner rider or a kid who comes into the UDJ system at a low level. They automatically move up the levels. If you're an experienced rider or, you know, a higher level rider already, you don't have to start at the very bottom. You can go into a higher level ability class that is only judged on the rider, like I said. And when you get a couple of good scores, you automatically cross qualify for that same level of benchmark and everything below that. So it's the ability classes are a little bit of a shortcut for qualification, but also they're way more than that, because the structure is also a little bit different. You ride with several different people in the ring at the same time, you know, so you have 3 riders in the ring at the same time. So the ability classes are 2 different parts. The first part is the free part. There are 3 riders in the ring at the same time, and it looks a little bit like a lesson or a clinic. And the judges want you to ride level specific movements. So the judges are calling out movements. Let's say in our M level is comparable to a third level dressage test. The judges would say, now I want to see some shoulder ins. Everybody write some shoulder ins. Now I want to see some flying changes. Everybody write some flying changes. That's like 10, 12 minutes looking like a lesson or a clinic. That is being judged, of course. And then afterwards, the judges bring everybody in, give them feedback. So the judge would talk to you and say, hey, I really liked your shoulder ins. I liked all your lateral work, but your flying changes were not good. You know, they were always a little late behind or a little crooked or whatever it is. Why don't you try this or this or this? So you get some feedback and you get a couple of tips from the judges. And then after that, everybody individually writes a very short dressage pattern, like about a 2-minute pattern individually. And that's the benchmark part. So those are the 2 different parts of the ability classes. All of that combined is going to be your ability score. And if you score well, you automatically cross qualify for benchmark. But to be honest, 95% of riders love the ability classes. They say, I don't even want to ride regular dressage tests anymore. You know, I have no anxiety. I'm in the ring with a couple other people. I get feedback from the judge. My test is only 2 minutes long and not 6 minutes long. And I don't even need a fancy horse to do well. I just need to be a good rider. So that is a great concept, and it's very different. But at the end of the day, it's still, we want to see good dressage riding, you know, or good riding, you know what I mean? So this is one of the, and you got to stop me when I'm talking too much, but
no, I love this. I love this.
This is one of also one of the big approaches in UDJC is saying, we need to stop labeling everybody. Oh, I'm a dressage rider. I'm a jumper. I'm a hunter. What? It's all the same. It's exactly the same. Every single discipline is exactly the same. At the end of the day, you just need to ride the horse well. And if you know how to ride the horse, if you know where the buttons are, if you know what you're doing, it doesn't matter if you go into a dressage test or into a jumping class or into a hunter class. There's no difference. It's just riding the horse. So, and this is one of the very sad things that is happening here. A 7-year-old kid goes into a riding school, which happens to be a hunter riding school in 99% of the times, and they have 2 lessons and somebody labels them a hunter. you're a hunter now, Sandy, for the rest of your life. Don't worry, you're never going to look into a dressage test. You're never going to do a jumping class in your life. We're not going to do any jumping in the field, all the fun stuff. You're going to be a hunter and only that. And we're going to do the same 8 fences for the rest of your life over and over again. It's pathetic. That's what it is. And we're fighting against that very, very, very hard. In my opinion, and this is also the same, the organizations in Europe work, you have to do a little bit of everything to a decent level at least before you're even allowed to pick a discipline. Yeah, and that's what needs to be done. If you want to develop good riders, you need to be in all these disciplines.
Oh, this is fantastic. So you're saying in this whole program, you could compete in different disciplines within the program.
Yeah, of course. And we see a lot of riders. It is totally different, I know. So I've met 60-year-old dressage ladies that have never seen a horse jumping over a jump with their own eyes. So they came to our show and they wanted to ride a couple of dressage classes, and then they went to the jumping ring and they were completely blown away that there are actually horses jumping over jumps. And it sounds funny, but it's actually very, very sad, because part of a good dressage program is always jumping the horses. And if a dressage rider is not jumping the horses, then it's not a proper dressage program. And I don't care what anybody says, because gymnastic lines, grids and trot poles, canter poles, cross rails, especially gymnastic lines, are a big, big, big part of any good, decent dressage program. And if that doesn't happen at the barn, well, so it's sad. And the other way around, of course, too, you go to an A show and you talk to 1,000 hunter kids and ask them, hey, did you ever ride a dressage test? Oh, no, I don't even know. I've seen it at the Olympics, but I don't even really know what it is. Well, it's mind blowing to me, because there is no proper riding without a proper dressage education. And does everybody have to be a high level dressage rider? No, of course not. But you still need to know what a corner is and what a circle is and how to get the horse on the bit and what, impulsion and balance and all of that is, and flexion and bend. And if you don't know that, then unfortunately you're not a good rider. You're not going to be a good rider. And it is what it is. And it always sounds harsh when I'm saying these things and all that, but there's not a lot of, it is what it is. Don't hate the play. I hate the game. It is what it is. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think what you're saying, this has happened for decades. People get through the levels and they get through and they accomplish and they win, but they may not have the proper foundations that makes them a solid rider.
Yeah, but it only lets you go so far, and this is another development that you can see, especially in the hunter jumper world. I mean, how many kids do you know that ride 75 centimeter jumping classes or 2'6", 2'9" classes? And then how many of them do you see in a 1.10 or a 1.20? So many kids in the jumpers hit a wall at about 1 meter because they don't have the proper education in order to ride higher than that. And of course you can mask it a little bit with buying more expensive horses and better horses. And of course, a 1.50 horse from Europe, of course carries you over 1.20 for a while. Yeah, congratulations. Now you're a 1.20 rider, but you're not, so you see a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of kids hitting the wall at about 1 meter. And that's the lack of proper foundation, proper education.
So this basically gives them the opportunity to cross-compete if they want to, or if someone like me, an amateur dressage rider, if I only want to do the dressage path, I can do that. Correct?
Oh yeah, you can do whatever you want. So we don't force anybody to ride multiple disciplines, but we want to open up that path. Actually, that's a lie. We do force you a little bit because we have 8 performance levels. So if you are, let's say you're performance level 4, you're allowed to ride a 1.10 jumping class, but you're not allowed to ride a 1.20 jumping class. When you have enough success in 1.10, you qualify for performance level 5, and then you're allowed to ride 1.20s, and so on. In the very lowest performance levels 1 and 2, you need success in dressage and jumping in order to move up in jumping, or also in order to move up in dressage. You need to ride some tiny 40 and 50 centimeter jumping classes before you can move up in dressage. But that's pretty much for beginner riders that pretty much start in UDJC and they start at performance level 1 and then move their way up. So there is a little bit of forcing because we think it's important, but it's not, if you come to a show, we're not going to tell you, oh, but you cannot ride the third level dressage test here if you don't ride a 90 centimeter jumping class. We don't do that. We do that in Germany though, and a lot of people don't know that there are riding badges in Germany. And if you nobody cares how old you are, nobody cares what discipline you ride. If you want to go to a recognized show, you have to pass a riding badge. There are several riding badges to pass, but the one you have to pass in order to go to a show, you have to ride a 90 centimeter or 95 centimeter jumping class, an equitation class. You have to ride a first level dressage test, and you have to do a big theory test. If you don't pass that, all three of them, you're not going to a show. So even you as an adult dressage rider, you would have to ride a 90 centimeter jumping class before you can go to a show. But it's, it sounds scary now, but if you grow up in that system, it's completely normal for you. Most kids do that when they're 8 years old or 10 years old. But that's a requirement. And it's totally normal to look into different disciplines and ride different disciplines. Most kids ride up to the L level, which is meter 10, meter 15 jumping and second level dressage. They ride both and then they pick a discipline at that level. So, nobody can just get away with, oh, I'm only a jumper and I'm just going to start riding 40 centimeter jumping classes and move my way up. And I'm doing that without any dressage. It's not possible.
It's really interesting. So tell me about where your shows are, how you are, like what the plan is to expand. And then we'll talk about the awards, because of course that's something that people are interested in.
Yeah, I know they are. I don't know why, but I know they are. But so we have two different types of shows. We have foundation shows and we have circuit shows. Foundation shows are being held mainly at UDJC certified riding schools. So if you have a riding school and you're interested in UDJC, and you might even teach the UDJC way already, telling your students not to race like crazy in 60 centimeter classes, but proper riding, proper multiple disciplines, all this kind of stuff. You can become a UDJC certified riding school. And as a UDJC certified riding school, you can organize and run foundation shows all over the country. Foundation show means it doesn't go all the way to high levels. It goes to about second level dressage and meter 10, meter 15 jumping, but it has all the young horse classes. It has all the little kids classes. Everything is there. And the goal is that we build a network of foundation shows all over the country. The goal is I want to have a foundation show within an hour of a drive from everybody during show season. So if you feel like you have to go to a show at the weekend, you have to take your young horse, you have to take your kids, you want to do it yourself, you feel like you want to go to a show, there's going to be a UDJC show within an hour of a drive that's going to cost you $100 to compete. So that's the goal for the foundation shows. The circuit shows are being run by us, by the organization. They're bigger shows in bigger venues, overnight clinics, training days, all the way up to fourth level or international levels, all the way to meter 45, meter 50 jumping, all of that. Just, a bigger show in a bigger venue. Those circuits for 2026 are Texas and Florida. So we have about 20 or 22 circuit shows in Texas, and we have, I think, 15 circuit shows in Florida, in Tampa, in Ocala, and at Terra Nova. And yeah, they're just bigger shows. And the circuit shows also lead to, there's a championship path that leads to circuit championships that we have twice a year. We have one circuit championship in May and one circuit championship in December. And yeah, there's young horse championships, elite youth championships, and open championships. So everybody can qualify for some kind of championship and then, collect a couple of qualifiers throughout the season and then come to the big championship show and compete for the championship title. That, I make things sound more complicated sometimes than they are. So you gotta break me up when I do that. So long story short, foundation shows I hate the word schooling show because they're not schooling shows. Every single UDJC show is fully recognized. There are always awesome judges giving you really good feedback. You always have, there's always points that you collect for your rankings, your performance levels. They're never just schooling shows, but they're just smaller shows in typically smaller venues, whether the circuit shows are bigger shows in bigger venues.
Yeah, I love the term foundation and circuit. Yeah, it takes away, because I think, like you said, that schooling, it's always been tough because, of course, I love to go to those schooling shows because and I was in Georgia and I'm in Florida now, but we would have the really good judges would come to the schooling shows, and it was a great way to school our horses. But it always felt like when you say schooling, like it didn't matter, and it does matter, So I
Exactly.
love that.
It does matter. Yeah. And the foundation shows do matter, because I mean, of course it always, what does it mean they matter? If you are a 7-year-old kid and you go to your first show that is a foundation show in your barn, you're going to be excited and you want that lap
Yes.
of honor and you want that ribbon and you cannot sleep for 3 nights leading up to the show and all that. Of course it matters. All of
Yeah.
that matters a lot.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that because, we would always say like the horse doesn't know. So my
No.
trainer was like, as many times as you can get down center line,
Yes.
go. And like you said, the excitement. And I think especially for amateurs, for us to just be able to get out. And then so when we are at a more, the recognized,
Yeah.
we have that experience. So you're in Texas and Florida now. What's the plan I understand your plan for the foundation shows. What's the plan for the circuit shows?
The plan is that we pretty much add 2 to 3 circuits every season. So we're gonna see, we can see with the foundation shows and the certified riding schools really clearly where is the next area where we have to be. If we have 0 foundation shows in New York, but we have 15 riding schools in Georgia, and we have foundation shows in Georgia, and there seems to be a lot of interest, then of course the next circuit in 2027 is going to be Georgia and maybe California. So the goal is to always add 2 or 3 circuits until we have circuit shows all over the US. What we realized this year in 2025, which was our first year, obviously, we were spreading ourselves very thin and we were running shows all over the country. And we realized, okay, this is not, we can't do that. It doesn't make sense for so many reasons. That's why we had to come up with this foundation show and circuit show system where we take the pressure off the shows by the shows being foundation shows. No, anybody that comes to a foundation show knows, okay, this is going to be at somebody's barn. There's going to be good footing and it's safe and it's going to be a great atmosphere and good judging and all of that. But I'm not expecting a buffet and I'm not expecting, a bunch of fancy stalls and all of that. You know what you're getting into. So that takes a lot of pressure off the show, takes pressure off the show, takes pressure off the show organizer, takes pressure off the organization. And then we can focus on the big shows step by step. So that's the goal. It's establishing Texas and Florida, still grow it and still build it up, and then build the next 2 circuits the year after. And there's not that many circuits at the end of the day. It sounds like a never-ending journey, but it's not really. You're talking about maybe 10, 12 circuits throughout the US, because California is going to be 1 or 2 circuits. Then you have the Midwest circuit. You have, of course, East Coast up and down, and then Georgia, Kentucky. So you got probably 10, 12 circuits. So if we can add 2 or 3 circuits to that every year, then, in probably 4 years, which sounds long, but it's not really. If you look at the scale of things we're doing, it sounds long, but it's not. We're going to have circuit shows with championship paths all over the country. And then, of course, we want to have national championships and all that. Like in 10 years, I want a kid in not even 10 years, in 5, 6, 7 years, I want a 12-year-old to say, I want to go to national championships in UDJC, of course, and not to national championships in USEF or some other organization. That's the goal. We want to get into the barns. We want to change the whole mindset. How can I explain that? For us, it's not about the shows. It's not about changing the show circuit. For us, it's about changing the whole industry. We want to change the mindset. We want to get into the barns and we want proper education. We want everything to be done differently. We want to create real riders and real horsemen and not kids that come for their lesson and sit on a pony that has been tacked up and then get back into the car and go home. We want barn rats. We want kids working for their success. We want all these old school things to come back. And in order to do that, we need the shows. The shows are only a tool in order to change the mindset in the barns. Because if you do all these things correctly, if you teach these kids to ride properly and not fast and this and that, but then you go to a show and you're not being rewarded for it, you might even be punished for that, for doing it correctly, then nobody's going to change it. Nobody's going to change at the barns because they need to be successful. The trainers need to be successful. Otherwise the clients are leaving. So what you have to do right now is you have to put your clients or your kids on the wrong path. You have to tell them, yes, we need to be successful here. So you have to race in the 65 centimeter jumping class. And that's what they do. And burp, they're on the wrong path. We need to create a system like we're doing in UDJC where, riding correctly and well is you get a reward for that. So the people at the barn or the trainers and the kids want to change for the better. And that's where we need the shows. A lot of smart people wrote a lot of really good curriculums and really good books. And there are some awesome books that are 200 years old already. All of that is legit. All of that exists already. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. The problem is it doesn't help to have that we need the show circuit at the same time in order to make these good things apply. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's the reason we're in shows. Our actual idea or like I said, what we want to do is change the barns, but we need the shows in order to do that.
Right. To create the goal. Yeah. To get there.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that we got, which I thought was interesting, and it's from someone who does a lot of sales, will the scores be public to be able to use right now? Okay.
So we have, and this is going to come out in the next week or two, and it's also going to apply to all the 2025 shows, which is putting all the data in. We have a company we're working with. They're called Show Jumping World, and they create a website for us where everybody can track all their points and all their data. So even the 2025 season, you can see exactly all your records. You can see your scores. You can see which horse placed in which divisions, how many points did they get, all this kind of stuff. So there's going to be a search bar and all your scores are going to. So I know I understand the question. It's for show records, for sales horses and all that. Yes, we will have all of that.
That's great.
And more. Yeah.
So one of the things that happens now, which is just the way that it is, but a lot of shows are very cost prohibitive and the memberships are becoming cost prohibitive. Tell me about that with your program and kind of how the prices are going to compare.
Our shows are probably less than a third of regular USEF or USDF shows. So I want to give you an example and of course, the longer you stay, the more you ride, the bigger the show is, the more expensive the show is going to be naturally because you have more nights, more shavings, all of that. But I want to give an example. When we have a show at the Great Southwest Equestrian Center here in Katy, Texas, which is a very big, very nice show facility, then we typically do 3 days of showing, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Thursday is a warm-up day. Thursday is when everybody arrives and we have warm-up classes and clinics and stuff like that. On Thursday. So typically a horse stays from Thursday to Sunday for 3 nights, the warm-up day and 3 show days, including the shavings, including the stalls, including all of that. It's about $350 on average. That's our average show price for a big show like that. If you go to a smaller show, if you do a trailer in or whatever it is, sometimes you only pay for your classes, which is between 30 and $50 per class. If you don't need a stall, you don't need shavings, you don't need any of that. So it can become even significantly cheaper. But your average, bring your horse for 3 nights, 4 days. It's like $350, something like that. And that's the same for Florida. That's also the same in Tampa. In Tampa, 3 weeks ago, we had a 2-day show plus a warm-up day, and the average ticket was like $230 or something like that. So it's very, very, very affordable. Why is going to be your next question? Because we're not greedy. That's why. That's the reason why it's that affordable. We work a lot with volunteers, because show organizers always act like all these positions at a horse show are rocket science. Oh my God, you need the best gate person and you need the best guy to pick up poles. Well, let me tell you, all of this does not require any skill. You know, you need a good course designer, you need good judges, and the gate, we have starting list, so we have an order of go. So the person at the gate just has to make sure that the next rider is going to get into the ring. It is not rocket science. A 12-year-old can do that. You know what I mean? So we got to get away from this whole bougie horse show. I need four guys, pay him $400 a day in order to be in the course picking up poles and stuff like that. No, a dad can do that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to sound
I
disrespectful,
do.
but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we have a dad, and we're like, hey, your kid's gonna be hanging out at the show all day anyway, so why don't you sit in the corner here and pick up some poles whenever they knock down? And they're like, yeah, okay, no problem, I'll do that. So we'll work. We try, and this is not only. Also this whole volunteer thought is also to build more of a community again. And this is something that a lot of people say when they come to a UDJC show. They say afterwards, oh my God, the community feeling was completely different than on the regular at a regular show where everybody's doing, their thing. And, everybody helps everybody at UDJC shows. If you come without a trainer, come, no problem. Somebody's going to build jumps for you. Somebody's going to walk a course with you, whatever you need. Somebody's going to grab you a water, no problem. Just ask, so it's a totally different atmosphere. And that's coming from the top all the way down to the bottom of the organization. And yeah, so we don't pay guys $400 a day to pick up poles. We don't pay anybody $400 a day to send somebody into the ring. But if you can see that when you come to the show. You can also ask people that have been to shows. Still, it's very, very, very organized at UDJC shows. Everything is on time. Nothing is running late. Nothing is running early. Everybody knows exactly where they have to be. So you would think, oh, a bunch of volunteers are running a show, and what do you mean? And then, no, it's not. It's super professional. It's super professional, and it's super structured. Way more structured, because we're also not holding the ring. You know what I mean? That's another thing that drives me nuts. In the dressage world, that's not really a thing because everybody has very accurate start times. But if you go to these hunter jumper shows, nobody knows when they're riding. Nobody. You're like, oh, I might ride at 9 in the morning. I might ride at 3. Who knows? So nobody knows. And we don't like that, and one of the reasons why this is the case is because the ring is being held all the time for all the trainers, because, they bring people to a horse show that supposedly cannot show without the trainer. I mean, don't ask me why or how, because I cannot answer that question, but everybody always wants to wait for the trainer, and the trainers think the whole show has to stop and wait for them to get to the. Well, we don't do that. We hold the gate for riders. So if we have a young horse class and we have 6 horses in the young horse class and one rider is riding 3 of those horses, well, of course we wait and give them time to warm up the next horse. Obviously, that's when we kind of hold the ring every now and then. But we're not holding the ring because you decide to go get a coffee and show up 20 minutes later and your kid cannot ride by themselves. We don't do that. So that's why everything is on time. That's why everything is structured. And yeah, they're good shows.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I have volunteered. I've been a ring steward for a 5-star eventing event because of my background in dressage. And we ran that. I mean, we had everybody on time and 4 rings going. But it takes, volunteers, when volunteers have the experience and our riders, we can run a show, So.
Well, and it's a lot more complex in eventing than it even is in what we're doing, I mean, I know that most of the eventing shows are heavily volunteer based, and that's impressive, because the area is so big and you need so many volunteers and you need great volunteer coordinators and all that. Yeah, I take my hat off to that. It's a lot simpler in a contained environment, if you want to call it that, you know what I mean? Yeah, so it's not, and then it's not rocket science. You know what I mean?
They can make it a lot harder than it is, for sure.
Oh, exactly, and that's why we can get everything so much cheaper than a lot of other shows.
That's great, because then that's passed on to the rider, and the less expensive it is, the more shows they can do, and it all sounds absolutely fabulous. I am super excited about this. So just to wrap this up, what is the most rewarding part of this new program with UDJC that you've created? What's the most rewarding thing for you?
Every single show, I can see almost every rider get better from Thursday to Sunday. Because what we also have is the judges' feedback. We didn't even talk about that. In every single score you're getting, it doesn't matter if it's dressage, it's our style jumping classes, or even our hunters. The judge grabs the microphone and gives you feedback and explains you why you got that score. So you write your 75 centimeter style jumping class. Everything below 85 centimeter is judged, by the way, on the rider in jumping. And our hunters are totally different too. Maybe we have to do a second episode and talk about because we didn't really even talk about the details a lot yet, or what makes it so different. But anyways, it doesn't matter. Everything that is judged, the judge grabs a microphone and tells you why and what to change and all this. So just by listening to that judge's feedback, and a lot of trainers appreciate that a lot because the judge probably says the same thing the trainer says, but they hear it out of a different mouth. They hear it in different words, and it sticks a lot better than when the trainer says it a lot of times, So you can see people actually getting better from Thursday to Sunday. And that is very, very rewarding. And one thing that was probably my favorite thing in 2025 was we had at one of the shows in Texas, we had a training level dressage test, which is our E-level dressage test. And we had 38 or 39 riders in that class in a training level dressage test. And almost all of them with their jumping saddles. They came over from the jumpers and they said, you know what, since dressage is here, my trainer said dressage is important, so I'm going to write a dressage test. So we had a huge, and this was the first time it happens all the time, but this was the first time that it actually happened that I thought, okay, this is exactly what we want to do. We want to give every rider a platform to go into dressage and figure it out and see, how cool it is. And believe it or not, every single one of these 38, 39, let me call them jumper kids, hunter and jumper kids that went into the dressage ring said afterwards, oh, this was so cool. This was, a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. So that's exactly what we want to achieve. And that's very rewarding. Yeah.
That is awesome. I mean, that I can see, I know our listeners aren't going to be able to see it, but I can just see how you light up, talking about that. So,
yeah.
Well, thank you for being with us today. And just for our listeners, can you just tell them how they can learn more, your website, that kind of thing?
Yes, the website is udjc.org. Very simple. There's a lot of information on the website. I know it is a lot of information in general, so it's not an easy thing. Oh, I'm going to read this for a minute and a half, and then I know what's going on. All the disciplines are a little bit different. Our hunters are mainly judged on the rider. We pretty much almost completely take the horse quality out of the picture. All the lower level jumping classes are judged, all of that. So it is quite different. So it takes a little bit to look into. So go to the website, and then also social media. We have so many videos and so much content on social media. If you watch those, you get a pretty good idea of what we're doing. But the most important thing is just come to the show. Just show up. You have nothing to lose. Put your horse on the trailer, come to one of our shows and realize it for yourself. And even if you don't exactly know what you're doing yet, don't be scared. Don't think, oh, but yeah, I didn't completely understand yet how it doesn't matter. Come to the show. We're going to help you. Everybody's going to help you through it. And after the weekend, you know exactly what's going on. And I can promise you're going to love it. That's for sure. So just come to the show and you'll figure it out. So
I love that. I think that's what everybody is wanting. They just want it to be fun again. And I love that whole concept. So, thank you again for being on our Main Street Minute podcast. And we will be back next week with our next episode. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please let us know. Email support@mainstreetmarket.com. Please share and join us again next week for another episode of the Main Street Minute, right here on the Equus Radio Network.